Well, Derrick, Polder, thank you very much for letting us do this, man.
My pleasure.
You are a legend in the Tucson community.
Oh, is that right?
I mean, outside of even just real estate, because it seems like everyone I talk to that invests, buys, sells, they know who you are. But even outside of that, the events that you've put on, your involvement with the community, and even helping people, with mentorship grow and learn about finances and business, I think that's pretty spectacular. So all that to say, I appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate the compliment. Yeah.
Yeah, I think for people watching this too, this is really like a master class, even if it's a little shorter. I mean, I think there's about to be a lot of value in what you've learned from business and what you know about wealth. So thank you.
All right. Well, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Any way I can help.
But to start off, I'm curious, like where you got inspired to get into business. Like, what is the backstory
of real estate?
Well, yeah, and like how I know I've heard you tell a story about like taking a chance on yourself too, where you were kind of at a crossroads. But yeah, what got you into business and I guess real estate to kind of take that chance on yourself?
Yeah, I think if I go back to the original seed was a teacher in high school. And before that, I was always kind of entrepreneurial. I started like a car detailing business when I was in high school. I was a two-time high school dropout. Two-time high school dropout. So I was a knucklehead kid for a while, but I think I got it somewhat straightened out by the time that I graduated. I actually graduated on time. But I had a teacher my senior year, and because of the dropout, I didn't have like that easy senior year where you had like 3 or 4 classes. Like I was going to like my main school, and I was doing like an accelerated course, a couple courses on the side, and then I was doing like a weekend program. But I had a teacher that I had to pick like an elective to be his aide, and I picked this guy who was just super calm and cool, and I just noticed that he enjoyed teaching and didn't have to. And one day he said to me, he's like, "Why'd you pick me?" And I said, everyone else seems stressed and you seem like you actually like to teach. And he goes, "I do. Just so you know, I have 16 rental properties. I teach because I want to, not because I have to." And I was like, "Oh, how'd you do that?" And he told me a story about he was a bartender and that he made a rule that whatever he made in tips went to work for himself. So the next day, I think he had bought his first house, or maybe his dad gave him a house. I don't remember how he got his first one, but he had a house, and if he made $80 in tips, he would go buy light fixtures and paint, and he would change out the fixtures and paint a room. And he did that over a period of time while he was getting his degree to be a teacher. And then he sold that house, made enough money, and went and bought 2 houses. And from there, it just grew. And so obviously when I found him, he had 16 homes that he was collecting rents on. He drove a nice big Hummer. And so the guy was just cool, kick back and relax, and teaching because he wanted to make a difference. And so that was like in my mind at 17. At 17, I was like, I'm going to go into real estate. I'm going to buy a house. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to fix it up and I'm going to sell it. And I'm going to buy 2 houses and it'll grow. And maybe I'll have 16, when I'm 55 years old or whatnot. And so the step 1 to do that was to get a job. And so I got like my first real job, which was AOL Time Warner, which when I say real job, I had done everything from car washes and waiting tables, but that was like a salary and it was your official like benefits and all that and a 40-hour work week. And so I was doing that and also going to school with their reimbursement program. And that took 4 or 5 years. So my goal was kind of shelved while I was working. And the best blessing ever is I actually ended up being really good at that job, grew into management positions, and ended up making like $70K a year. And I'm like 19, 20, 21, and I was like, wow, I'll be a corporate man. This is great. And then they shut down the operations in Tucson. So I lost my job along with 400 other people. And then that seed that was planted when I was 17, I was like, you know what? This is my chance. I should go look at real estate. And that's how I fell into the business.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of similarities between like anyone that starts a business. And I'm assuming you didn't really come from money, right? Like no one handed you.
I got 6 brothers and sisters. I grew up poor. Yeah.
So do you think you had a drive at that point of is that what drove you to kind of try something else?
It absolutely had a big drive because I remember seeing how much my parents struggled, and then, having fights in middle school and high school, or like picked on for what shoes I had on my feet, and then like literally see my mother cry when I asked her. There was a point probably when I was like 13, 14, I asked my mom for money to go to the movies, and she literally broke down crying, and that was like the last time I asked my mom for money again. So at that point it was like car washes, restaurants, like, and I was washing dishes in a restaurant when I was 14 years old. Like it was just became like I knew that I had to rely on myself to make it work.
I think that's a big similarity that, between other people that run businesses or are CEOs. It's just kind of like move and figure it out, like try different things. And I know you've told a story about, I think you had a position to go to a bank. Was that the story?
Yeah, so when I left that job, when AOL Time Warner shut down the operations, it just became go apply for as many jobs as you can possibly get. I will say, because of that teacher, I knew how important real estate was, and I had a good job. And so I bought my first house when I was like 20 years old. So I got that job at 18, got my 2-year work history, and I did my research, and I was like, okay, you need 2 years to get qualified for a house. So I had my 2-year work history, and I bought a house as quickly as I could. I think one of the other things that helped me out is I also had my daughter at 19. So I went from like being a real big knucklehead in high school to like being forced to grow up real fast. And so there I was, I got laid off. I'm, I don't know, 21, 22, and I have a mortgage and I have a daughter, and I'm thinking like, how am I going to make this work? And I did all kinds of different interviews, and one of them was a really good big national bank, and they offered me a nice management job, and they said, oh, you'll probably make, I don't know, 80 grand a year. You're going to get a base and a bonus, and we're going to put you at our flagship location, and you have management and a sales background, so you'll probably do really well. And I got that call for the job offer, and I remember saying, can I call you back, because I'm looking at one other thing. And that other thing was I had found a guy in real estate. He was actually in the mortgage side of the business, and I didn't know better. I said I wanted to go into real estate, and people introduced me to different people. And my mother introduced me to one guy who owned a mortgage company, and I ended up doing that for a little bit while I was trying to find other jobs. And then through that, I got introduced to a guy who was like top 100 in America, just a well-known local businessman. And he was a loan officer, but he was very, very good at what he did. And I was kind of pursuing him while I was doing other job interviews. And so when the big bank called me and said, hey, you got this job, I called him and said, hey, do you have anything open for me? Because if not, I'm going to go work at this big bank. And he finally said, all right, come on in. And so I took a leap of faith. I took that job, which was no salary, no guarantees, and it was 100% commission. And not only that, I had to pay him 60% of every dollar that I brought in for him to allow me to be in his office and to mentor me. And it was the best choice I ever made. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard you tell that story. It gave me chills, like thinking that you had your daughter at the time, so obviously you couldn't mess around. You couldn't spend time, just trying something out that wouldn't pay the bills. But I think the fact that you took the chance on yourself and maybe saw like more of a runway in this business, and obviously since then we're in your office, you have your group here, you've helped probably hundreds, thousands of people get into homes and invest and all that stuff.
It's been a good ride.
Yeah, to say the least. So going from that to where you are now, like what do you know now that maybe you wish you would have known back then when you were getting started?
Well, I wouldn't say that I didn't know it then. I think maybe it was luck, maybe it was intuition, God's plan, whatever, I don't know. But what I can now articulate to other people is like, hey, I learned this, and that people might help other people, is I was very fortunate to take a risk early. So, doing that, like buy real estate as early as you can, and take a risk early if you can. But if you're going to do that, surround yourself with the best people. And, I have a mentor that's been in my life now for 13, 15 years. And, this is a credit to him, but I strongly believe this. And it's called the bigger pile principle. And so think of it, if you and I were at a poker table and I'm trying to learn how to play the game, and there's 8 other guys playing. Everyone's going to tell me what to do, if I should bet, if I should fold. But the best guy to listen to is the guy who has the biggest stack of chips. He's the biggest pile. He's obviously winning. He's the person that knows how to play the game. And I think that a mistake I see a lot of people do, when I had that decision to do I go work for this guy who's not going to pay me anything and he's going to take 60%? Some people will look at it that way. What, you're going to get nothing and he's going to take money from you, right? And a lot of my friends had that mindset of like, dude, you have a daughter, like go take the job. Like, what are you, you're crazy. But I think what I saw that I had the opportunity to work with someone who was going to teach me how they were so successful. And this guy, again, top 100 America in any industry, you're going to be well. You could be a hairstylist, you could be an attorney, you could be a mechanic. If you're the top of any industry, you're gonna do well financially. And in our industry, if you're in the top 100, you can do very well financially. And so I just saw like this was a chance to take, and I could always get a job, but how many times am I gonna have an opportunity to learn? I remember telling my mom at the time, I was like, Mom, this would be like learning from like a local Donald Trump. Like I don't know if I'll have another chance like this. And so, I did it. And looking back, that's one of the lessons is like, take a chance early, bet on yourself, but you don't have to do it the hard way where you're just banging your head against the wall for 10 years trying to figure it out. There are people that will probably be very happy and willing to help you, that will give you their shortcuts. And if you can maybe I would have figured it out in 10 years, but because I found someone like that, maybe they cut it down for me for 3 or 4 years. So I got back 6 years of my life, and I hit a destination that maybe I would not have done on my own. So I think bigger pile principle, like learn from somebody who's qualified and take calculated risk early. There's many lessons I've learned along the way, but from that story, those would be the two things I'd tell you.
Yeah, mentorship seems like it's been a huge part of your life in business. And I know that that's what you do for, me, a lot of the friends that I have that, are mutual friends of ours, and now you can give that to other people, help them out, say, hey, there's, a barrier there, avoid this, do this, to set yourself up in business and in life. So do you still do mentorship now? Do you still look to guys? Is that still prevalent? Or?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is when I started working for myself, when I got into that business of doing financing, it really is what you want to make it. You could work 3 days a week, you could work 6 days a week, and I decided to go all in. I worked really hard, and it was really foreign for me because I came from corporate America working for a Fortune 100 company where everything was documented. If you were a minute over your bathroom break, they knew about it, you were in trouble for it. And then here I am in a whole different industry where I haven't seen my boss in 3 days, the offices next to me have the lights off, people are barely coming into the office, and I'm like, this is so foreign for me. And so I decided to, I was missing the accountability that I had in corporate America, and another lesson I had from a really good mentor in that job was, if you want to get something done, the best way to hold yourself accountable is to have someone else do it. And so I was always used to reporting to my boss in corporate America and like with a plan and following up and executing the plan. And so then to be working for myself and not have that, it just didn't feel right. So I went and I hired some guy on my credit card. I didn't even know, when my next check was going to come in, but I had a credit card. And so I hired some guy out of Phoenix, and he became my business coach for the next few years. And my first goal was to hit 6 figures, and he helped me do that. And then he helped me through a tough relationship, and that was really instrumental in getting it kicked off. But after about a couple of years, again around 2 years, I felt like I had plateaued. Nothing against him, but the business was starting to take off, and the business is very complicated. And so I was looking for somebody that really understood the industry I was in. And so I found this company that they were like high-end consultants for the real estate and finance industry. And so I contracted with them, and at that time they charged $2,000 a month, which was also very scary. I was starting to make money now, but $2,000 a month, $24,000 a year just to like take a chance at somebody giving you advice was crazy to me. But again, I found people that were ahead of me, bigger pile, and they were like, this is what helped me get to where I'm at, and it's not going to be a waste of your time. It's certainly not going to be a waste of your money, and you can always try it for a year, and if it doesn't work out, you're going to have information you can take with you for the rest of your life. So I decided, all right, I'm going to go in and try that, and that ended up being life-changing because the guy who mentored me there, again, bigger pal, he's still in my life today, and he's sitting on $110 million cash. I don't even know how much real estate he has. He has a car collection that's like out of a James Bond movie. And he's a very down-to-earth, humble guy who preaches to the more success you have in business means the more people that you can impact in your community, which means the more money you can give away, and that you have a duty and obligation to like pay it forward. So that's been a big reason why some of the things you talked about, I believe in, writing checks to the city that I live in and helping any people around me, because many people helped me out. And so I love doing that. And to this day, I now work for that company. So about, 4 or 5 years in, they offered me a job, which is surreal because my goal always was, if I could ever make 6 figures, that'd be so great. And that job is about 2 or 3 hours of my time on Thursdays, and it's a 6-figure part-time job for 3 hours of work a week. But it's really cool because now I'm teaching people that are making 6 figures how to make 7 figures, and I'm teaching them how to invest their money wisely so that way they can actually be financially independent. And that would have never happened if I didn't take a chance maxing out a credit card and then, paying for this program that I thought was stupid expensive. But I took the risk based on those lessons I talked about earlier.
That is crazy. I mean, it's definitely paid off, but it's like you wouldn't know at that time when you're putting the money on the credit card that, maybe it would lead to this point. And then speaking of, obviously being down to earth and being humble, being probably more frugal with your money, I see that in you. I think I've talked to like Andreas and maybe Reed Bright. It's like, yeah, you're not very flashy. You don't have like this car that you're like posting online or anything like that. Like, where did you learn that, or how is that?
Probably growing up poor.
Really?
Yeah, probably growing up poor. And then, I think growing up poor, but with a lot of love. So, because I think there's, it's easy to grow up not having a lot of things. And when you get it, you get a little bit of money, you want to spend it. But I think that because I was pretty certain about who I am, and what my family couldn't give me in terms of dollars, they gave me a lot of love, and so I never really felt like I needed to prove anything by having a fancy car. And many times my first car I ever bought, I bought myself for $1,500. It was a '87 Cadillac Sedan DeVille. I bought it from a mechanic. And I used to have to, right underneath the Cadillac emblem in the front on the grill, he had rigged a light switch underneath it to turn on the fan. So every once in a while I'd be driving and I could smell that I forgot to flip the light switch on because I could smell the car overheating. I'd have to pull over, jump out, flip the switch on. So I've always been just whatever gets me from point A to point B is good. I always bought my first few cars. That was $1,500. I bought my next car for like $3,000, just paid it cash. And eventually I got to the point where, now I could have a, nice car. I love my truck now. I have a Raptor now. But yeah, I'm not worried about impressing anyone. And I am really big about investing. So I make money. The money that I make, I immediately put it into the stock market. I put it into real estate. So, I've had years I've done well and I feel completely broke. And I think that's another trick is get your money out of your bank account as quickly as you can, because that's all the bank's going to do. The bank's going to take your money, they're going to pay you 0.001%, and then they're going to turn around and give you your money back at a 7% auto loan or a 6.5% mortgage. And so you have to learn how to arbitrage that game too. And people always say, well, where do you make money? How do you invest? The S&P 500 has been paying out an average 10% for decades. Like, start at the very least of just buying the S&P 500. Just start doing that. After you have to have a little bit of money saved. I always think you need to have 3 to 6 months of like your bills put away. That way you don't go do something stupid, YOLO with stock. Like, I'm not saying to do that. I'm saying just put your money safely in the stock market every single month. If you have 3 to 6 months of your bills set aside, you can then do that. So like level 1 is build a savings net. Level 2 is start investing. And I'd rather invest than have flashy things.
Yeah, we have to get into that too for sure. I know that's you're very passionate about it, but it is interesting to reiterate. Mentorship's been huge. It seems like a lot of people online want to show that they have this kind of lifestyle that they probably really can't afford. Something I can't not say this, but something that you told me that I had to write down is you said before you take advice from anybody, have them show you their tax return or their tax statement, right?
Well, that was a financial advisor, yeah. So not to knock any financial advisors out there, but I will say when I first started making money, I hired a financial advisor, And I don't think they took good care of me. And then as I started meeting more successful people and started like doing comparison and learning more about money, I realized that there are a lot of financial advice. Like if you just look at, go look at government data, look at Bureau of Labor Statistics of what an average financial advisor make. And I think that on the low side, it's like 37,000. I think the median is like 80,000. There's nothing wrong with $80,000. But if you're really starting to grow your business and you're starting to earn six figures, and you're looking at investing, you want to make sure. Again, I believe in that bigger pile principle. And so if my first advisor put me in bad investments and I start learning about the S&P 500 and I realize my advisor made me 2% and the S&P would have made me 12 that year, I'm feeling like, why am I paying this guy? I could have just done that myself. And to this day, I have a financial advisor. So I'm not knocking financial advisors, but the way that I found the advisor that I have now is I learned and I said, gosh, why did I not apply that same principle to the guy I'm hiring to manage my money? And I went through a few different interviews, guys that called me up and said, hey, I want to manage your account. And we sat down and I said, what'd you make last year? And it wasn't about that they had to make more than me or whatnot. It was that I want to know that they're good at their job, right? If I'm going to go for surgery, I want the best doctor, right? And if I'm going to go for someone who's managing my hard-earned money, I want them to be good. So I asked him what he made. He did well. He made a good chunk of money in his industry. And then my second question was, what do you personally have in the market? And he had a very good portfolio. And I was like, okay, this guy walks the walk and talks the talk. And to this day, I still work with him, and he's given me great advice. And so again, I'm not anti-financial planner, but I guess in general, what I'd say is people intuitively know, pick a good doctor. I think that should be applied against any professional, right? You're gonna pick a builder, pick the guy who's built the exact home that you want. Any industry, go after the person that is the biggest pile that you can find or the right fit, and don't just listen to your loved ones, because your best friend or your mother might have the best intentions for you, but they don't always have the knowledge that you need. So yeah, that wasn't about just going and looking at what anyone makes. That was specifically related to money.
Right.
Yeah, to
No,
money management. Somebody should know that they should show you that they've mastered making or investing money.
However you said it, I took it just in the sense too of like you can be a knucklehead giving advice online nowadays, which a lot of people do, of like put money in this crypto or that or whatever it might be, where I think I took it as just like exactly what you said, someone else that's actually done it, follow them, and not someone else that wants to be that.
It's a proven recipe that many successful people will give you for free too. So, and there's also many people that will give you a free recipe and they have no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah, I love it. Now, we definitely, we've kind of went down that direction, but let's talk about wealth creation. This is a big question, but what do people not know about it that you do now?
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Would you mind if I got up and grabbed something?
Please, yeah,
all right.
please
I'll
do.
make it easy. I'm going to show you
what
my mentor taught us. This is an easy reminder. I'll kind of walk through this. So that program that we talked about, this is the things that we teach people all the time. And many of these people are already doing well. They're already making six figures, and we teach them this is the right way to grow your wealth. So notice number one is primary luxury real estate. It's 3 to 5 times what you make, you want to buy real estate. The reason why real estate, and this might sound like, well, of course the real estate guy is talking about buying real estate, but there's a data point I'm going to give you that you cannot refute. Because there's a lot of people online that will say, real estate's a bad investment, don't do that, don't buy a home, you can rent a home and no one tells you what to do. So I'll ask you, what do you think is the average net worth of a homeowner versus a renter? Is it 2 times more, 5 times more? What do you think?
I would say, 5 times more, I would think.
It's 40 times.
40?
40 times. Just go Google this. The average homeowner in America has a net worth that's 40 times higher than a renter. If you look at one of the largest wealth creations in America, it's real estate. And yes, there's other emerging industries. Crypto's like a new big thing. But the reason why real estate is so powerful is because God's not making any more land, right? And it's a great inflation hedge. So if I just gave you really simple math, let's say you bought a house for $300,000 and you put down 10%. You don't have to, but I'm just going to make the math simple. You put down 10%. That means you put down $30,000. Now let's pretend that house only grew 2% in value year over year, which if you look at nearly the last 100 years, it's averaged over 3%. If you look at I think it's last 30 to 50, it's been almost 6%, but we're just going to say 2. We're going to go super low and say it's just moving at inflation. It's not even growing. It's just growing with inflation. Okay, it grows 2%. So if it grows 2% over 5 years, that's 10% growth. So that means that your house that you bought for 330 is worth, or for 300 is now worth 330, which means you've gained $30,000 in equity off of your $30,000 investment. So that means in 5 years, you've had 100% return on the money you put into the house. So when you argue, should I pay rent, should I pay a mortgage? Well, let's just cancel those out and let's look at the cash that you put down versus the growth that you've had. So that means that it's grown 100% off of 2%, right? The 2% growth, the 2% of the whole house grew, not the 2% of your $10,000. So there you are 5 years later, you made 100% of your money, which is 20% per annum. That's double the stock market. And by the way, the smartest guys that went to Ivy League schools and are running hedge funds, such a small percentage of them actually can beat the S&P 500. They have lobbies of smart people that work for them. They're analyzing all these sectors and industries and plays, and some of them get it right, and some of them will get a 18% return or whatnot. But very few have been able to consistently beat 10%. So here, first-time home buyer who just bought a house just to have a place to live in has just doubled that by not even doing anything spectacular, just because inflation is 2% per year, okay? So that's why we're really big on buying real estate. Number 2 is build up your liquid reserves. So I say 3 to 6 months, 25K, whatever your bills are, put 3 to 6 months in a savings account, and that's all you're allowed to leave in the bank. Don't give the bank another penny of your money because they're gonna arbitrage it and you need to arbitrage it. Then you go into number 3, which is maxing out your 401k and your IRA, and this is such a mind-blowing, we have nearly 30 employees that work in here, and I'm very proud that I just hired 3 or 4 new people, so my record's broken right now. But before I hired them, we had 100% of people in this office were homeowners, and everyone participates in their 401k because I very much believe in this, and I always push people to do this. I have girls in this office that are literally millionaires, and they've worked for me for 5 years or whatnot, just because of these principles. And when you look at a 401k, I'm shocked at how many times I've talked to people that have good 401k plans and they don't use it. And the argument is, well, you can't pull from your 401k until you're 59 and a half. But I've used the 401k to buy a house in my 20s. I used it again when I bought my next home. And the reason why is 401k has a provision that you can withdraw from it for home ownership, or you can withdraw from it for a significant event, like maybe you were distressed because your car engine blew up, or maybe you got sick and you need surgery. So the beauty of the 401k is, we just talked about the stock market, 10%, 20% if you're amazing. Well, your biggest expense is taxes. Taxes, they're going to clip you. The average person is going to be paying 18, 20% in taxes, and if you start making more money, you're paying 20, 25%. I mean, I'm in that range now where I pay 40+% in taxes. I did the math one day and I was like, I basically work until May. I work till May for free because I don't get to start keeping my money until after the taxes are paid. And so if you put money into a 401k, you're getting to avoid that. So let's just use a low number and say 20%. Every dollar that you put in there, you're saving 20% on that money. And so it grows so much faster. So when you are going to buy your first house, that's a great savings account to buy your first house, is through your 401k. Or God forbid something happens to you, you get sick or something significant in your life, you actually have a fat account that you can pull from. And as long as you loan against it, not pool, if you loan against it, there's no penalty. So people will say, oh, don't tap your 401k, there's a 10% penalty. No, that's only if you pull it. If you loan against it, which I've done 2 different times, you only pay interest. And who do you pay interest to? Yourself. So I tell clients all the time, hey, I'm working against myself here, but I'd rather have you pull that 30K from your 401k, borrow less from us, save yourself money, you're going to get better terms in your loan, and you're going to collect the interest on that 30K versus paying it to the bank. So I'm a big fan of maxing out your 401k, so you actually have that option to do that. And then as you're doing those things and you have extra money, then you can start putting things into safe ETFs or mutual funds. You can buy the S&P 500, you could buy the NASDAQ, QQQ, etc. And then if you're doing that and you still have extra money left over, that's when you can start going to the stock market and actually stock pick. And that's where it gets risky. But if you're good with it, I had one friend that over the years he was really big into
Tesla. Him and his wife drove Teslas, and he kept on putting money in then. And over a period of like 5 years, he had put like almost $1 million in Tesla, and then it like 10x'd. Wow. So he did really well. He's sitting on a fat pile of Tesla. So you can eventually get to number 4, but even if you can just get these first 3, get a nice house, max it out. The reason why we say get, a luxury home is because if your house is going to grow, 10% over 5 years, I'd rather grow 10% on 500,000 versus 200,000. I'd rather grow 10% on $1 million versus 500,000. So if you can afford it and you're working hard, why not have a home you can go to that you can enjoy? That's where you're going to spend all the extra time that you're not at work, because most of the time is spent at work. So have a really nice house, and then know that you have that to grow. So these are 4 steps that we teach for our wealth accumulation, and it seems so simple, but I can stand behind my over a decade of learning this and teaching it, that despite what I'll see people post on Instagram or whatever else, this is where I've seen real wealth. This is where I've seen people with high 6 or 7-figure and 8-figure portfolios that keep it this simple and follow this plan. And I promise if you do those things, especially if you start young, literally everyone could be a millionaire. Like it's not hard once you start understanding the simple basics of investing.
That's wild. That's beautiful. I mean, I like that this will work for whoever, whatever you do, whoever you are. And I know a lot of people, once you have a business, it's like, I'm going to knock W-2, 401k, like screw that, I'll just be really aggressive. But even coming from you, I know like this is just a proven method.
It's a proven method, and I've seen it for so many people all over the country now, different markets, different states. It just works. And so again, going back to the bigger pile principle, I follow that recipe. And again, rather than buying 3 cars, I'd rather buy another house, or I'd rather buy stocks. And so that's where I like to spend my money.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for going. I hope that people rewind this too and like take notes. I mean, because just breaking it down like that, I think simplicity is key. Mm-hmm. Being smart with your money. I think that's, you're a testament of this, is just following those steps and then getting to kind of where you are now.
Yeah, the guy I was telling you about that has $110 million, and he teaches me everything about how to invest my money. And one of the things that he has said to me over the years that he said to me once, and it's stuck in my head over the years, is that complexity is the enemy of execution. So when people give you a 5-page business plan and all that, it's a lot of times, not every time, it's just an excuse to not do the simple work. Not pick up the phone, not show up every day. A lot of these guys that I coach here, the first thing I tell them is just show up. Just pick 8 o'clock, be here by 8, work till 5. Like just work a full, heavy day, and during that day, work. Don't just show up and wait for someone to call you. Simple. Show up, follow through, work hard. You'd be surprised how far you can get on just those things.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think that's a lot. That's a lot of value in just that. Man, I mean, before wrapping it up, I mean, it can be about money, it can be about life advice or anything like that. But if you were to tell, 20-year-old you or 19-year-old you, whatever, like about life, or maybe other advice that might help you, or the person watching that's maybe in their 20s, like, I want to become financially free, or, get to that point where I don't have to stress about paying bills. What is maybe something that you would advise yourself or that person?
I think that you have to love to learn. I look back at like 20-year-old me, and I did a lot of things right that set me up today. So I can look back and I can say thank you to 20-year-old me. But I think the reason why 20-year-old me was able to do that is because I was inspired by not having much and not wanting to live that way. So it set me out with a question of like, how do I change this? And so I started picking up lots of books, and there's so many great books and so many lessons in all those books. But I believe Think and Grow Rich is what you think about, you become. And really early on, it wasn't about like, how do I make 6 figures, 7 figures, whatever. I knew that was where I wanted to go, and I knew in order to get there, I needed to learn how to do it. And when I found my mentors really early on, I was not afraid to write a big check. When I ended up convincing that guy to let me go work for him, and he was taking 60% of my commissions or whatnot, that lasted for about 6 months. And then that company started going through really tough times because the real estate, the whole economy was crashing because of real estate. And so here I am thinking, gosh, I finally felt like I got on stable footing. And maybe this is the worst mistake ever of getting into real estate because the whole real estate economy is crashing. I mean, this is like 2008, 2009. And I'm thinking, what did I do picking this as an industry? And, you know, I had this guy who was my mentor, and that company that we worked for said, we need your help. And so they tapped him, they made him become the COO. They wanted him to basically run the company. And so he was like, hey, I'm too busy to mentor you anymore. But come over to the corporate headquarters, because he had like a nice little boutique office. Come over to the corporate headquarters, and at least you can be close to me, and I'll keep an eye on you. And he introduced me to the guy who was the president and founder, you know, shortly after my move. And he basically said, hey, I want you guys to know each other. Derrick, this is the guy who started the company. You know, you're a young hard worker, up and comer. It'd be good for you guys to know each other. And he introduced me, you know, we said our hi, hello, whatever, and then didn't talk to him much, but, you know, throughout the year, you know, he gave me like one guy to call or whatnot. And in December of that year, I did a strategic business plan. It's called a SWOT analysis of strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And I remember like I wrote his name down as an opportunity. I went and talked to him and I said, hey, this is the guy who owns the bank. Keep in mind, I'm already on this, you know, I'm already on a commission structure plan. And that previous guy who had mentored me had released me from the 60% that he was taking because he could no longer mentor me. He's like, hey, just the commission's all yours now, like, good luck to you. And so I go to this guy and I said, hey, you're the guy who started all this. I have a proposal for you. I will give you 25% of all my commission if you'll mentor me, and I get 100% ownership of your database. So any of your friends, because he had given me like 2 introductions from when I got introduced to him of his friends, or when, hey, call this guy, he owns this hotel and he's thinking about buying a second home in San Diego, call him. And so I said, I'll work any of your business and I'll do it for 40 cents on the dollar, and I'll give you 25 cents of every dollar that I make, on top of the fact he's already making a split off me because he owned the bank, but I didn't care, I gave him extra. And I know it's a long answer to your question, but the point being is I see so many people now that are all about, how do you pay me the most money? Like, I want the most hour, the highest per hour, I want the biggest commission split. And they're doing themselves such a disservice, because what I did at 20 and 21 and 22 is I worked really hard on making myself a better person and acquiring knowledge along the way. Learning this, learning that, sales and communication, business and finance, investing, real estate 101. And anyone that would teach me, I would gladly pay them, or I would take a pay cut to be around them. And you know, when I was in that office and I made that deal I was just telling you about, a lot of the OGs of that office, you know, a lot of the old guys who've been doing it for 20 years, 30 years, looked at me like I was just a young idiot, like, oh, look at this guy. And, you know, I would hear jokes and things, and, you know, sometimes they'd say right to my face, and sometimes I'd hear things behind my back. Oh my God, this guy's an idiot. You hear the plan he took, da da da. But, you know, within probably 2 or 3 years, I was making more money than any of those guys there, even with the worst plan, because with the knowledge and then the connections, so this guy teaching me, and then the connections that he had and my work ethic behind it, I was outproducing those guys 10x. And so even if my plan was, you know, only 70% as good or whatnot, I was out multiplying them so much that, you know, I can't deposit a percentage in my bank account. I could deposit dollars, and I was depositing a lot more dollars than they were. And it's because I don't know how I knew, but at a young age, I valued the people that I was around, and I recognized that they would help me cut my learning curve. So to give a simple answer on that, it would be, if you're young, just work on building as much skill as you can, as much discipline as you can. Be the hardest worker that in any industry that you are. Don't let anyone outwork you. My goal is be the first one and the last one out. And I did that, and it's surprising how fast, if you do that, it doesn't seem to happen in a month or 2 or even 6 or maybe even a year, but it's crazy how fast it kicks in at 2 or 3 or 4 years. And as long as you keep that up, it starts compounding, and you get more talented because you still have that same work ethic, and then your connections expand even more because you already met good people that introduce you to more good people because you follow through. So it's really crazy what can happen in 5 or 10 years if you have that mindset.
That is powerful, and thank you for sharing all of that. I think last question before I let you go. I'm going to assume that you don't have to be coming into the office. You probably don't have to show up to work, and you can obviously live off of the hard work that you've done already and enjoy it. But being a lot younger too, I mean, what drives you still at this point? Like, why do you still show up?
I think a word I said for years, I don't know when I arrived at this, maybe when I was late 20, early 30, that I said, I came to like my why was growth. I was like, you know what, I love to grow, challenge myself. I like to grow and challenge others, which is why I like to coach, why I like to manage people. And so that's still a big part of it. And now, that's, not to like do the flex, but as you said, yeah, I have got to that point where I could retire if I wanted to. I don't need to work. I can, I've invested well. I have the real estate that brings in residual. But now I have other people I'm responsible for. I have my team. I have other guys here that I'm growing. Like I said, we have like 30 employees in this location. And I also feel like outside of, if I was not working, it would be fun, and I love to travel and all that. But then ultimately, I think that I would be lesser version of myself. Like, you can go to the gym for an hour or two a day. Like, what would I do? I'd work out every day, and then I'd lay around. I could travel, but there's only so much travel. So I think that work is also really good. I think that work gives a lot of people purpose. I've seen a lot of, I've had some other mentors in my life that were older gentlemen that I did business with that retired and then came back and then retired again and came back again. And so I think what happens is time goes on and you don't need to work, then you should just customize your life where you only work with people that you really enjoy working with. And that's really where I'm at is, I get to do business with people I really enjoy doing business with. I get to help people with something I really believe in, which is real estate, and that's fun to me. And, I get to travel when I want to and help people, all the people here that believe in what we're doing. And, I'm a big piece of driving the business, so I really do it for them. And, again, I still make money along the way, but now for me it's more of the game than the necessity.
I love that. Thank you very much, guys. Yeah, I mean, this has been a whole lot of value jammed into this.
I'm glad.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for your time. And then also for people watching, check you guys out on, it's the Polder Group, right? On
just Polder
medias
Group at Instagram. That's probably the easiest way to find us. And, we still post a video or two on there a week. So yeah, Polder Group on Instagram. If you're someone in real estate, I do teach classes so they can come to my CE school and get your continuing education from a class. But yeah, follow us on Polder Group on Instagram.
I love it. Yeah, and then anyone interested in buying a home, or I think the steps on getting there too, I know you have a group and you
Give
guys...
us a call. We'll get you started. Never too early, never too late. There's always a plan. It might take you 3 minutes. It might take you, I think my longest client took 3 years to get all their stuff cleaned up, but we're here. We're not going anywhere. We're happy to help you.
Thank you. All right, guys. Well, Derrick, thank you very much,
my
man.
pleasure,
I appreciate you.
Thank you.